Welcome to Series 2, Episode 1 of When Safeguarding Fails, the Lizzie Gladwell Crisis. I'm Jeremy Gladwell, Lizzie's dad, and I'm telling the heartbreaking true story of how our daughter, a vulnerable young person, was taken, isolated, and subjected to coercive control, and how she was cast adrift by the agencies tasked with safeguarding. July 2024. 1 year. 1 year since our daughter Lizzie was taken. 1 year of silence. 1 year of anguish. 1 year of waiting, of hoping, of fighting. 1 year since Lizzie was torn from the fabric of care, love and safety, and dropped into an alien world of isolation, control, punishment, and trauma. 1 year after the predatory removal of Lizzie, we were still trying to comprehend how such a vulnerable young person could be taken from her entire support network with the blessing and the silence of the very institutions that were meant to safeguard her. As the evidence of coercive control, manipulation and exploitation mounted, we believed that the police and adult social care would recognise the abuse and illegality. We thought it would take mere days. Then the days became weeks. The weeks became months. And then 1 year. For 1 year, we had lived in the dark shadow of bereavement, the blinding repetition of grief, the nights disturbed by anguish. Throughout our ordeal, I believed I could find the right combination of words to cut through the authorities' thick smog of institutional disinterest. How was this right? How was this moral? How was this safe? On which planet, in which universe, is it acceptable to park outside someone's house with the sole intent of extracting their vulnerable child with complex learning difficulties, without her possessions, without any communication with the parents, without even giving the daughter a chance to say goodbye to her mum and dad, the day after her 18th birthday? How was it possible? How was it acceptable? And why was it condoned, encouraged, and ultimately even enforced by the agencies? Lizzie had disappeared into a system that promised protection, but delivered isolation and exploitation. That's not safeguarding. That's not care. That's abduction. It had to be me. I obviously wasn't expressing myself clearly enough, and I needed the right words to penetrate the hard crust of disinterest displayed by Humberside Police and Focus Adult Social Work. I had to break through. For Lizzie, her family, her godparents, for Jane. I believed that the scales would fall from the eyes of the agencies and that they would finally see and understand. It would take a miracle, but I had to have faith. It took a year of trying, of urging, of speaking into the vacuum of disinterest before it finally dawned on me. There was no form of words that could persuade them. Every word I had said had been a waste of my breath. Every email I had sent had been a waste of my time. The system had decided to disregard the evidence, to pretend that the evidence didn't exist. Focus Adult Social Work, Humberside Police and Linkage College wanted me to leave them alone, to just leave Lizzie there, to accept that it was over and that Coral's scheme had succeeded. No, no, no. I could not do that to my daughter. I am Lizzie's dad. You can appreciate, I'm sure, why Jane and I decided to create the document. We had no choice. After enduring a year of state-sponsored cruelty, our patience had run out. We knew we had to compile all the evidence into one comprehensive dossier, and that is what we did. Between us, Jane and I reviewed every text message, phone log, recording, transcript, journal entry, and email. We asked for evidence and first-hand experience of family and friends. We collated and we compiled. The document described Lizzie, her background, connections, nature, and vulnerabilities. It detailed her FASD diagnosis and the complexities of her condition, how affected individuals are immensely susceptible to suggestion, the gap between expressive and receptive language skills, the nature of the spiky profile, and the need for supportive scaffolding. The document chronicled Lizzie's removal and provided evidence of the deliberate severing of all of Lizzie's links with those she loved. The document laid bare the indifference and ignorance of the statutory agencies, ignorance of FASD, ignorance of coercive control, ignorance of the correct protocols when assessing the mental capacity of an individual with FASD. It was all in there. Details of control and manipulation, Lizzie's premeditated removal, her phone being hidden, the secret SIM swap, messages intercepted and deleted, numbers of loved ones blocked, movements monitored, punishment for disobedience, the swoop, rape allegation against her innocent uncle, self-harm, the harrowing 999 call. We told the story. 80,000 words of facts, evidence and testimony. At over 125 pages, it was the length of a novel. The document was entitled The Case of Lizzie Gladwell, a report on the critical failure of Focus Adult Social Work and Humberside Police to safeguard a vulnerable young adult in northeast Lincolnshire. We arranged for the document to be professionally printed and bound. Every I was dotted, every T was crossed. The agencies had ignored us so far, leaving Lizzie to be manipulated, controlled and exploited, leaving her to be rewired, rewritten and reprogrammed. Now, with the evidence handed to the agencies in black and white, they had to take it seriously, surely. This was coercive control. This was exploitation. This was a crime. The document was sent to Gary Atkinson and his boss at Focus Adult Social Work. Copies went to DC Roscoff and his boss at Humberside Police. It went to the council, the chief constable of Humberside Police, and the police crime commissioner. We were tired of being ignored, dismissed, and disbelieved. 1 year earlier, our daughter had been taken. We needed to break through, to be heard. We needed to make it clear that what had taken place was wrong, a plot, predatory, calculated, and criminal. We sent the document to these individuals in hope and faith. We waited for the response, and waited, and waited. From Focus Adult Social Work, no response. Of course. From DC Roscoff, no response. Ditto. I do not think they read it at all, any of them. If they had read it, they would have had to face the evidence. However, we did learn that the copy that had gone to the Chief Constable had been forwarded to the Professional Standards Department of Humberside Police. That sounded promising. Surely the Professional Standards Department would read it and realise that their own officers had completely failed to follow Home Office guidance. But they didn't read it. In fact, they refused to read it. Let me repeat that. The Professional Standards Department of Humberside Police refused to read a report regarding their own officers' failure to follow Home Office guidance. Categorically. Let that sink in. A detailed, evidence-packed report outlining the coercive control of a vulnerable adult went to the highest levels of Humberside Police, and they refused to read it. Their reason? They said that I would need to get Lizzie's permission before they would read it. They attached a consent form. If I could ask Lizzie to sign it, they said, they would read the document. If I could go and get Lizzie to sign the consent form, then we wouldn't have needed to create the document in the first place. Their instruction was illogical and deeply insensitive. We were blocked on Lizzie's devices, barred from the door under threat of arrest by Humberside Police, gagged from communicating with our own daughter. And yet, they asked me to get her to sign a consent form before they would consider investigating the failures that had kept Lizzie isolated. It was a cruel and callous joke. I was astounded and escalated it as a formal complaint. The eventual verdict was that the Professional Standards Department were within their rights to refuse to read the evidence. I asked if anybody in the complaints procedure had read the document. No, they had not. And so in August 2024, Humberside Police formalised their refusal to engage with the evidence. They presumably did not want to see what was in it, because if they saw, they would have to act. And that would mean admitting failure, and it would mean accountability. However much you deny the truth goes on existing. George Orwell. One afternoon in August, my phone rang. Private number. I answered cautiously. The caller introduced himself as Detective Inspector Beeching. He was quick to ask me a question. What exactly did I want Humberside Police to do? I asked if he was aware of the document of evidence. Yes, D.I. Beeching said he was. Had he read it? I asked. No, he had not. I said I wanted Humberside Police to properly investigate the clear evidence of coercive control of a vulnerable individual. Beeching said that there wasn't any evidence. I reminded him that the evidence was in the document. But Beeching said he hadn't read it. The easiest way to claim there is no evidence is to simply refuse to read it. Beeching noted that since Lizzie was deemed to have full capacity by focus, she was presumably making decisions of her own free will. Ah, yes. The capacity assessment. Conducted without any awareness of FASD, without involvement of any expert in a complex neurological impairment that has significant impact on executive function. Conducted without regard for anyone with extensive lived experience of Lizzie. Conducted in a manner that defied common sense as much as it contravened official guidance. A capacity test that was improperly conducted and deeply flawed. That capacity test. I'm not going to get into points of law with you, Beeching responded, because you say potato and I say potato. I need to understand what it is you want. Please read the document, I urged. It was not Lizzie's intention to cut off all links with her loved ones. She believed she would be able to maintain all relationships and contacts. They have been severed. That was not her doing. If you read the document, you will see that the connections with her family, friends and entire support network have been overtly and systematically severed as per the wishes of Coral Wilson Clark, who drove her away, took her phone off her, gave her a new phone without her family's contacts on. This is not a case of Lizzie's choice. This is external. D.I. Beeching responded to say that Lizzie had a phone and could contact us if she wanted to. Not if she's under coercive control, I objected. What is it you want Humberside Police to do? Beeching repeated. By this stage I felt like shouting, "Just read the bloody document." I remained calm. You ask what I want from Humberside Police. Until you have read the document, this conversation is probably going to serve little purpose. D.I. Beeching said that he would have a discussion with his line manager and get back to me within 10 days. I never heard from D.I. Beeching again. Curiously, throughout the conversation with D.I. Beeching, he kept on referring to Lizzie as the victim. I didn't grasp the significance of it at the time. Bear in mind that Beeching hadn't read the document and didn't accept the idea of any coercion or manipulation, and yet he repeatedly described Lizzie as the victim. He said, and I'm looking at what I've got, looking at Lizzie as the victim. Knowing what I thus far know about the victim, I have to start from the point of the victim. So Lizzie is the victim in this. I look at it, what I need to do for my victim. But if, as D.I. Beeching maintained, there was no coercion, manipulation or exploitation, then of what exactly was Lizzie a victim? We wouldn't realise the significance of those words until nearly a year later. Within Focus Adult Social Work and Humberside Police, the stance was clear. A. There is no evidence of coercive control. And B. We refuse to read the document containing the evidence of coercive control. To them, Lizzie had full capacity. This was her choice, her decision, her fault. Even though Lizzie had an intellectual disability, even though she had a formal diagnosis of FASD, which makes her extremely susceptible to manipulation, even though she lacked any qualifications or independence. Therefore, ignoring all of Coral's cruel actions and malicious threats, the agencies painted Lizzie as the mastermind. It was absurd. It was offensive. It was grotesque. So I decided if they won't read the document, maybe they will listen to it. I can't get Focus Adult Social Work to act. I can't get Humberside Police to investigate. That's why I created the podcast, to tell the story, to warn others, to speak the truth. I wanted you to hear what they refused to read. There is a lot to cover in this second series. Shocking revelations, institutional failures, missed opportunities, lies and cover-ups. And then eventually, I discover the shocking reason why Linkage College, Humberside Police and Focus Adult Social Work have been so resolutely and comprehensively dismissive towards me. Most of all, though, this series asks the question that still haunts us. When will we see our daughter Lizzie again? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of When Safeguarding Fails, the Lizzie Gladwell Crisis. Please subscribe for news and updates on lizziegladwell.org.uk. Talk about the children and young adults like Lizzie. Speak to parents of young people with special needs. Spread the word to protect other families. Thank you again, and join me for the next episode.